Hi, Mike Malaska, and we have technology. We're going to talk about that here with Malaska Golf. And you know, there's a lot out there today. I mean, there's all kinds of technology, and a lot of it's just phenomenal. And especially if you have access to it and you actually know how to use it. So today I've got Kevin Brown here with K-Vest. And so Kevin, first of all, thanks for coming.
Thanks for having me, Mike.
And so talk to me a little bit about K-Vest and what it is, what you guys do with it and why it's so valuable.
Yeah, we're a motion capture technology, and what we do is we help players understand how to move better in the golf swing. So that's simple. We put 4 sensors on the body, measure 3 degrees of freedom, so bend, side bend, and rotation. Put sensors on the body, and we can help that player and coach understand what that player's body is physically doing, their inefficiencies and their efficiencies. So,
folks, what I really notice about this too is I've got the whole thing on here. It calibrates to you, and once you understand what you're trying to do in your swing, it's all about feedback. So if you don't have feedback, I mean, a lot of guys stand out there on the range practicing, or they have simulators like this and they practice, and they don't really know if they're doing what they want to do. So you hit a lot of balls reinforcing bad habits or old habits. So what this really does, once you identify what you want,
correct,
is it's immediate feedback relative to what's going on.
Correct. It helps a player practice perfectly. So we give that good feedback, and we can customize it based on what the player's abilities are. So not every swing is the same, correct? So we're going to put the sensors on the body, and we're going to make sure that player gets into a good position that's repeatable for them.
Well, and what Kevin just said there, when we're talking about golf swings, if there's anything out there, this last U.S. Open with Bryson and Matthew Wolff, you get to see how different swings can be and still be really good. But I'll guarantee you those guys have parameters that they're working all the time, that they want to hit certain positions through certain motions. And so the part about being able to program it for you, and that's what we're all finding out, is that everybody's a little different. So once your coach figures out who you are, what you're trying to do, now we can go into and say, all right, this is what is going to be the most efficient and the best for you.
Correct. Yep.
Rather than, I mean, models are nice, and I like that. It's nice to look at it and see kind of in a general area where things are. But the reality is, you're the model. And so a lot of what happens with instruction is people don't know who you are, and then they try to put you into something that doesn't fit, which is what I love about K-Vest, is because once I identify who somebody is and what I want them to do for them, then we can monitor them.
Correct.
Now, if you want to compare yourselves against a dysfunctional tour player, I guess go ahead. But that's a skewed model. We don't even need to go there. So Let's start with this. Now, I got all these contraptions on, which is interesting because what I like about it too is you can see angles in wrists, you can see how your shoulders move, how your hips move, what your arms are doing, the speed everything's going at. So there's really nothing you can't measure.
Correct. And like I mentioned earlier, we're going to measure 3 degrees of freedom. So we're going to measure bend, we're going to measure side bend, we're going to measure rotation. We also take the arm sensor down to the wrist, as Mike was mentioning earlier, and we can take a look at flexion, extension, and deviation as well. So that's another spot in the swing where we can take a look at and customize these players at this impact position, which I know you like to do as well, Mike.
Right. So if we're going to go through this now,
Correct. So we're going to put Mike into 3 positions. We're going to put Mike into an advanced posture position where we're going to be able to see his bend as well as side bend. We're going to put him into a halfway back position, and then we're going to put him at impact on a wrist position. So Mike, go ahead and get.
Now these positions, by the way, for me, they're what I want in my swing. So I've already set these up, so I know this is where I want to be. So now this is going to help me modify, or it's going to help me see if I'm getting actually where I want to be.
Correct. Yep.
So set up first.
Top, halfway back. Impact. And we preset these 3 positions for Mike. So as you can see, when he gets into that address position, we hear the feedback. When he gets halfway back, we hear the feedback. And then when Mike comes back down to that impact position, we hear that feedback again. So those tones help Mike practice perfectly where he wants to be in that golf swing.
Yeah, can I run through those again?
Absolutely. So I like to do this as well. I have a player step out and then come back in and find these positions again. Great.
Here's what's interesting. For me this morning, or today. The setup's really easy. The next one, I'm a little tight this morning. And so that one, it feels like I'm having to push it a little bit. So if I didn't know, I would have stopped way short of where I need to be at that point. And so there again, I'm standing here hitting balls, and even though I think I'm doing what I'm supposed to do, if I wouldn't have had that, given me that feedback, I would have stopped probably 10 or 15 degrees short of where I want to be at that point from a sequence perspective. Now, if I do that, then everything else from a sequential perspective starts to break down.
Correct.
So that was interesting for me because I had to actually give it I had to go a little further. I wasn't pushing myself, but I had to rotate my shoulders or my upper torso. I had to turn it a little further than I thought I needed to.
Yeah, and we always have that feel versus real conversation, right? Where you feel that you're in a position, but reality you might not be, as you mentioned. So this helps you understand, okay, this is the position I need to be in, and that feedback helps you obtain that.
Well, so let me go through that again.
Sure.
Because see, and there, okay, I had to make if I would have just gone, I would have been a little off. And folks, when you start looking at balance and setup, you just get a little off, a little forward, a little back, a little one way or the other, and you start to club back, everything starts to react a little differently because your body's a machine, and it's calibrating all these joints and where they're moving through space and time. So if you start them in the same position, they got a good chance of moving the same every time.
Correct. Yep.
All right, let me do that. Oh, sword. Oh, it's halfway back. All right, so we did this, so now I got to go to halfway back.
Finds that position and then back down to impact.
See, the impact one for me is because I've done it so much, but the reality again with impact, because the way I like to teach is starting from impact and working back. That's why I start with putting and chipping, and we talk about line of compression and how you compress the ball.
Yep.
So to be able to understand impact, when I have most people set up and they make a swing and then they look at their swings on video and I talk to them, here's your setup. Most of them will see something wrong in their setup. Most of them then will see halfway back, oh, I'm here, I'm there, I'm up, I'm down, or whatever. Top, they're all over the place. Halfway down, I'm here, I'm there, I'm everywhere. Then I stop at impact. And most people don't say anything.
Yep.
And then I go through and they pick that up. And I say, you know what's interesting? You talked about every position in the swing except the one that counts, impact. So if you don't know where impact is, which is your goal, that's the main task. If you don't know what that feels like, everything else falls apart. It doesn't matter where you are at the top. See, tour players, like I've seen them on this, and when they do their impacts, so I'll go set up again, halfway back. I mean, I can hit that thing every single time because I know what that feels like. Most amateurs don't know what impact feels like.
Correct.
And so they're building a swing around what? And a lot of them will just tell me, well, impact happens. I go, no, it doesn't. So that's the other marvelous thing about this is just being able to stand there from your address position and go to impact. So you start to go, here's where I am at address, this is where I need to be at impact. In my world, then the brain starts to see, here's the start, here's the task, how do we get there? And a lot of things then start to eliminate themselves because they have no relevance to the task of impact from a certain position. Does that make sense?
Yes, absolutely.
So, folks, I mean, it's really hard to do those things by yourself. I mean, even I was off.
Yeah.
And I've done this a lot, and I think I'm pretty good at it. And my setup was easy, but that halfway back rotation thing was quite a bit off. And it wasn't that it wasn't that I had to really force it. It wasn't hurting me to go a little further. I just thought I was fine.
Right, exactly. Yep. And it's customizable, as we mentioned before. Right? We customize these specific positions for Mike. So Mike gets into these positions that he wants to be at impact, as he was mentioning earlier. So every player that you teach, the players themselves, all of this is customizable to them based on what they need to do in their golf. So.
You know, the other thing is you guys have access to so much information. the guys that are trained to use it, depending on the individual person. I mean, we just went through a couple of things here.
Yep.
Obviously, I mean, you've got training programs, you have all kinds of things that are accessible through this program, not just what we just did here today.
Absolutely. We just did 3 positions with you. We can build programs with the players, specific positions. These are static motions that we're going through with Mike. We can really turn these into dynamic positions as well. It's a launch monitor for your body as well. We have smart tiles that are added into the software where actually you can find that perfect position and number, and those numbers will come up on the screen. If your pelvis is 25 degrees open at impact and we want it at 28, well, now you can hit a ball again and try to get that 3 more degrees. So all of it's specific and customizable to the player and what they're trying to work on.
See, that's critical, because for a long time, a lot of these models and a lot of these companies took the tour as a model, which that's fine, except you got to understand a couple of things. Tour players are dysfunctional human beings to start with. And then we've got the 99% of us that are out there trying to copy a model that may or may not be correct. And the thing about models, it's an average. What average means is nobody does it. So actually the tour players are skewed from that model a little bit.
Yeah.
So again, what this does is if somebody understands you as a player and you physically, and you're practicing trying to get your optimization with your swing, now you can monitor it on a daily basis, and you can see, okay, is my practice worthwhile? Because it's all about the perfect practice thing.
Correct.
And I see people standing on the range hitting balls all day long, and they practice and they practice. And what I'm watching them doing, they're reinforcing bad habits because they have no way to monitor if they're not.
Correct. And we can save that program. So the program we just built for Mike, we can save that so Mike can come back tomorrow, whether I'm here or not, or your coach is here or not, and actually get into those specific positions and hear that tone. So that practice perfectly starts to come in. If I'm on the range by myself, if Mike's not there helping me, I know where those numbers are that Mike set for me.
Right.
Because now I can hear that tone.
Well, see, I'm lucky. I have this Malaska golf studio, and I have this, and I have the cave. So I come in here, and you know, every day I don't hit a lot of balls, but I make sure a couple of things are right.
Yep.
And so then all day long I'm processing what that felt like. And so again, it cuts down too dramatically on how much you have to practice.
Agree. Yep.
So folks, so K-Vest, well, I mean, they can go online.
Yes. Yep.
And where else? I mean, you guys are, what are the, I know there's a lot of facilities that use K-Vest. Is there any in particular?
We have you know, the top 50 instructors in the world are using our system. Like you mentioned before, there's a lot of PGA professionals, facilities around the country. You can log on to kmotion.com to see any of the information that you need. Guys like Mike and these top instructors around the world are using the system as well to help. So anything that we can do, let us know.
Again, folks, this game's a great game, and people want to get better at it, and they spend a lot of time practicing. You want to make sure that what you're practicing is actually what you're trying to do, so you don't waste a lot of time and beat up on yourself for the fact you didn't get any better. The more monitoring you have on a daily basis, the better, the quicker you're going to get or reach your potential in the game. So take a look at K-Vest. You know, go to MalaskaGolf.com. And Kevin,
absolutely. Mike,
I can't tell you how much I appreciate you guys and all the work you do. I mean, this is just, it's incredible what technology can now help the average player have access to.
Absolutely. Thanks for having us.